Now, everybody keeps saying that relaxers cause cancer, but what if I told you that the same study that people are quoting as fact never even tested one single product? They followed 44,000 black women over a 25-year period, and now it's all over social media and everybody's filing lawsuits and blaming relaxers, but nobody's talking about their diets, the recipes, the lifestyles that people were living, and everything else that came with it. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what the study said and exactly what they left out, and how diet, environment, and estrogen, along with so many other things, are really the contributing factor that scientists are pointing to instead of relaxers and other chemical straighteners, because it's not just relaxers. Before you shame relaxers and throw out every product or deem every product as toxic and trying to kill black women, let's really break down the studies and the facts. So, what did this study actually show? 2022 large study that was done by the National Institute of Environmental Health Science. They followed about 33,000 US women, and remember, this was all self-reported, and these were women who were reporting that they were using chemical hair straighteners, relaxers, and other hair straighteners. There are so many different types, so remember, keratin treatments were around this time. Now, the study showed that women who use relaxers and other straightening treatments, that 4 times a year, at least 4 times a year, they ended up being more likely to be susceptible to certain types of cancer and the different things that were listed in the study. I'll leave some of them here on the screen. The study, of course, like I said, it showed that women who didn't use it, women who used it, they were 2 times more likely to get these different forms of diseases or disorders, right? This is from self-reporting. Another study in black women's health studies, it followed 44,000 black women. This one went for about 22 years, and they found that postmenopausal women that were using relaxers frequently, it was found to be associated with certain types of cancers, and that was the main focus. Now, in both studies, they said that these studies were related to chemical hair straighteners. That includes relaxers, but it does not it doesn't target relaxers by itself. Let's keep going. They often describe straighteners in general, and then black women just automatically think that they're talking about relaxers, where in reality you have keratin treatments, which were around, like, now everybody's starting to find out about them and they think that they're something new, but they're really not. They have been around for a very long time, and formaldehyde and cancer for the actual cosmetologist is why I ended up not doing it, even though I paid $800 for the class. But the study just describes it as straighteners or relaxers, but there was no ingredients. There were no ingredients collected. They were not like, okay, it was this relaxer that we use on this day, left in for this long with these ingredients. No, these were women that had the Essence magazine on subscription, and they were just self-reporting in whenever they had their monthly things that they would send in every month. They would fill out a questionnaire so they can get other things in return. These are the facts that we're going by. So it'll show you in the studies that I'll leave on my blog post linked in the description box below. None of these scientists knew anything about the specific brands, the ingredients, anything. This was all a hypothesis. All of it is a hypothesis. Black women argue about a hypothesis that was never tested, but I'm gonna prove it to you. Let's keep going. Neither one of the studies broke down any risk when it comes to lye. That would be sodium hydroxide versus no lie relaxer. There are no studies and no ingredients listed. Ammonium thioglycolate, there are no studies with that formula or with that additive, that key constituent listed. None. There was nowhere within the study that they isolated lie versus no lie relaxer as an isolated subgroup that directly contributes to cancer. And as a scientist, when you're talking about something that is factual information, you have to test and test and test, and you have to show some type of burden of proof. These scientists, they have no idea what products these women use. They have no idea what the formulation was, nothing. It literally makes no sense. And in a real scientific lab, no one is going to respect a study based on a scientist that just made a hypothesis with no testing. It's literally insane. But so the study talks about chemical straighteners and relaxers in broad terms, but it doesn't break down the difference in a keratin treatment, a silk amino treatment, the original Jerry curl or wave nouveau, and all of these different things. Perms, right? Because there's a difference between perms and relaxers. They were talking about all of those, but for whatever reason, Black women focused on relaxers, even though the study was for all of the things. Within the hypothesis, because there was no study, they flagged these constituents as, different flags that could be things that would lead to triggering the things that would cause or lead to certain forms of cancers or fibroids and things of that nature. Scientists never said, oh, for sure this is what it is. They said this is our hypothesis. And after we read over these submissions, when we think about it, we think this could be the corporate. And now Black women are taking that as, this is what science found. No, it didn't. This is what science made an educated guess about, but never tested. So what I find as a scientist, what I find kind of irritating about it, because I'm not pro or anti-relaxer, I'm pro facts. And as a scientist, if you're going to make a statement, I need you to give me all of the facts that led you to this conclusion, so that way I can perform the same test. But even as a Black woman, there was no data for us to know if whether or not they were telling the truth. It was just like, hey, Black women, this is what they're causing, take our word for it, this is what they said, with doing no testing. How is it that you know that these relaxers and their additives are the culprit when you don't even know what products the women used? Like, girl. And so that's why it's really weird to me seeing all of these people suing, like, oh, they didn't put on the label that it could cause cancer. Well, they couldn't put that on there because it was just a hypothesis. There was never any physical test ran to prove that as a fact. It was a hypothesis. So a brand can't put on the bottle like, hey, these group of scientists made a guess. They made a scientific guess, an educated guess that this may cause cancer. So I don't know. It's like, what? The data simply does not make that claim. And don't get mad at me, but most Black women don't read the directions on the back of a shampoo bottle. So I know for a fact y'all did not read all of these scientific studies, because when you do, link in the description box below, you will see that they never tested any of these things. It was a hypothesis. Some spread the misinformation to social media saying that relaxers, lie relaxers, and no lie relaxers were excluded from the study, so really only the keratin treatments actually mattered. And it's not true. This is a portion where, as a scientist, it's not believable because there's all of this missing data. Okay, if that's true, which I'm never gonna deny it, as a scientist, I will never come up against a scientific study and say that's not true. Oh no, really? That's what you found? Okay, let me see, let me study it with you real quick. But but they don't have any data. Mind you, I also need you to remember that in this study, keratin treatments were kind of conflated with relaxers. Like they would combine the two, and when certain cases were actually the thing that happens after a keratin treatment, they were putting those things automatically on relaxers, where there are more than one way. There's more than one way to chemically straighten your hair, and relaxers are not the most toxic. They're not. So what were they missing? What is this study missing? Because the thing is, the things that the study actually have are the things that are making black women like, yeah, but the things that the study is missing are the things that make scientists like myself not believe the study, because all they did was talk to 22,000 black women over a 22 year period. But I've had over 45,000 clients with appointments in my books over a 13-year period. So if you sit there and do the math, right, and I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm so much better than these scientists, but if you sit there and do the math, this is a group of scientists that tested 33,000 black women and what they typed in on a computer, or what they sent in through the mail. They never got product list, or they don't know what, opposed to someone like me. And there are cosmetologists that have been doing hair a lot longer than I have, and there are certain relaxers that we don't use because the formula is like, we don't like the product line, the way that it makes the hair feel, and all of the things. That's also why cosmetologists use products like K18 and Olaplex and all of the other different types, because we understand what's going on chemically with the hair. So we're not just willy-nilly picking random relaxers from beauty supply stores. We know exactly what we're doing, how to break down the bonds, and how to put them back together. It is literally a form of alchemy. And number one, there was no ingredient data, and they didn't collect any of the ingredients, none of the brand names, none of these things are in the study. Whether the product was lye, sodium hydroxide, or no lye, calcium hydroxide, and all of the others, whether they contained formaldehyde, paraffins, other disruptors, none of these things were listed within the study. None of them. They also didn't have in there if whether or not the exposure changed over time, because brands always, especially if it's a good brand, they listen to their customers for the most part, and they'll go back in and reformulate. None of the studies showed anything about reformulation and the formulas changing over time, and if whether or not that was an influence in anything. None of them. So why does this matter? Without the ingredient list, there's no way that you can pinpoint, okay, it was this one, it was this ingredient, it was this ingredient, and it was this ingredient that led directly to uterine cancer. There's literally no way that you can say that. It wouldn't be respected anywhere, in any way, shape, or form. There is literally no proof anywhere. And they never attempted to collect any. Number two, which is to me, which is one of the biggest determining factors, which is all of it was self-reported. And I'm not saying like, oh, everybody's a liar, but if we're really real and if we're really honest about the things that black women do and the things that they say, and not just black women, women in general, if we're really gonna sit here and say that women are honest about every single thing, like, you're crazy. If we're gonna sit here and say that everything that they do is straight and narrow, everything that we do is straight and narrow, is absolutely insane. Because it wasn't too long ago that everybody was going crazy over the Rivera Air blow dryer, and now if you go on eBay and type in Rivera Air, it's so many used ones because y'all trying to get rid of them. So we can't constantly, like, we have to look at facts and we have to look at patterns, because if we don't look at patterns and learn from them, we are going to repeat them. Participants self-reported, so they were asked questions like, how often do you use it? When do you relax your hair? They could just put anything. any and everything. And I know for a fact I stood behind a chair for over a decade, and I would have people sign up whenever you booked your appointment online. I would have women write in the same thing. You would fill out a questionnaire to make it easier for me when I'm doing their hair, right? Especially if they were getting color. And almost every single time that a woman booked an appointment with me, a woman my color booked an appointment with me, and I asked her, do you have any previous color in her hair? Every single time she told me no when she really meant yes. Every single time. Literally, I can count on one hand in over a decade how many women were honest with me. So for us all to be going, oh, relaxers cause cancer based on self-reporting of over 22,000 black women it's crazy as hell. It don't make no sense to me, baby girl. 44,000, 22, 33, 44, however many. It doesn't make any sense. Like, then they had to self-report when they started in childhood, how many times. So these were women writing down like, oh yeah, I'm 56, getting my Essence magazine, reading this, filling out this little paper. Because some of y'all too young to remember magazines, but they would get magazines and it would be like a little rip-off little part in there, and then they could answer these questions and they would send it back in. And when they send it back in, they would get coupons and stuff like that. That's what y'all all going by. So on the back of that card, they would put like, oh yeah, I got my first relaxer when that chick named Mimi did it, and my edges came out and they ain't never grow back. Like, that's how it's reported. I don't know how that is for you, but for me, that is an extremely big flaw, and definitely not something that I'm gonna make Bible verse and follow without studies and testing, because again, all we have is a hypothesis still. And then they got asked if whether or not they had used a relaxer in the last 12 months. Most of the time when women were filling this out, they were on the toilet reading the magazine, right? This was before cell phones and all of the things, so they had their Essence magazines on the toilet randomly trying to remember shit. Reporting is really subject to bias. That's why as a scientist, we're never taking what a group of people say out of their mouths as fact without testing it out ourselves. And every black woman who believes that relaxers cause cancer is a black woman who believes a study based on what women reported writing on the little card while they were on the toilet on the back of the post for their Essence magazine. And when they're saying they followed a group of women for 25 years, they weren't at their house. None of them came in to take tests. They didn't have any controlled groups or anything like that. No, none of those things happened. Most of them, my mom was one of those women. They have those magazines on subscription. So you have these magazines on subscription. You get in the magazine every other month, and every time they sending in little questionnaires, you filling them out, and then some go to some scientists, some go to other advertisers, and this is what happened. There was no group of smart scientists making tests. No, it was a group of people making hypotheses based on what women wrote in when they was on the toilet. That's what happened. Mind you, this is over a 20-year period that they're asking these women questions about stuff that happened in their childhood. And this is how they made those hypotheses. That is not credible. It's just not. Number 3. There was not one biological sample collected. Never, ever, ever. They didn't meet anybody in person. They didn't talk to anybody in person. They didn't take any blood samples. They didn't take any urine samples. Nothing. It was all the card that they wrote when they were sitting on the toilet. So all of the usage things, it was inferred. To infer is to like guess, like, oh, I can infer, I guess. They inferred that these things were because of the repetitive processes, but they never looked at any scalps. They never assessed any scalps. They never took any pictures. They never saw anybody up close. They never saw the progression of the scalp over time. None of those things took place. It took place with me in the salon. It did, but those things never took place. These were all self-reporting and a hypothesis, and them inferring on things based on what people wrote on the little cards when they was on the toilet. If I'm not taking your blood samples, if I'm not taking the urine sample, there is literally no way for me to be able to, there's no way for me to measure as a scientist, for me to infer or for me to make any type of specific claim that this one thing that you put on your scalp is the thing that led to this. You know why? I've never tested your body. They never tested anybody's body to even see if any of the chemicals had entered the bloodstream or into the body through the urine, through a urine sample. None of those things took place ever. This was all from women reporting, writing on that little card while they were sitting on the toilet. So the whole study y'all are quoting, they inferred that these things are caused by usage and patterns, but they never tested a soul. So they literally have no idea. These are all educated guesses, hypotheses. The same thing that your kids do. The Cookie Monster said that he's under the bed. Same thing. Cause cookies, is blue stuff on the floor. A 2-year-old could say, "Ooh, the Cookie Monster was in here because there go blue hair and there go cookies." It was the Cookie Monster. That's what they did. Number 4 is the way that they grouped relaxers broadly, as I talked about previously. Traditional relaxers, because the study was actually showing traditional relaxers, lie or no lie relaxers, keratin treatments, silk amino treatments, other types of bond straighteners, actual perms, Brazilian blowouts, and other thermal reconstructive systems. All were lumped under chemical straighteners, and when black women see chemical straighteners, all they think of is relaxers. Relaxers were not the only thing, but it's so crazy because black women are leaving relaxers but clinging to silk amino treatments and Gina Curl and all of the things, where in reality those are the things that they were actually talking about in the study. Those are the things that they actually had proof of. Because again, me and my friend Tiffany, we went together to take a class on it and found out there, y'all better wear masks, because if not, your lungs and whoop whoop and the formaldehyde, we found that out when we paid for it, but never did it for that reason. So it completely wasted our money, but our integrity was more. And baby girl, that was in 2010. It's 2025. So these studies have been going on for a really long time, and shortly after that they had to completely change the ingredients of Brazilian blowout and things of that nature because of this study. The study was not focused on relaxers. Some relaxers kind of changed around their formulas to make it more, you know, a little more susceptible for their clients and things of that nature, but it wasn't relaxers that were changing around the systems. It was Brazilian blowout, the keratin treatments. They had to change the base process because the reason I didn't do it, we had to wear a mask because we're doing that over and over again, and the thing that it releases ends up messing with our lungs, so we didn't do it. None of those things happen with relaxers. The negative things that we know about relaxer comes from you not properly prepping and preparing the hair before the relaxer is put on. If you base the scalp too much, the relaxer won't even take, meaning that the type of polymer that you put on top of the scalp and on the hair shaft, it protects the product sometimes from even being able to penetrate. That's why you have to use a certain amount. These are the things that I need y'all to understand. Just like my hair right now, I like to wear my hair a little flatter, right? But I only have a relaxer on this side and in the back, right? Because I was like, oh, not yet, girl, it's only curl right here because it needs to be relaxed right here too. But understand that my hair is extremely healthy. I have no burns, nothing. And actually it didn't take as much because of the way I based it. I based my scalp too much, so my relaxer didn't take as much on the top as it did on the sides. These are things that y'all have to understand. But when we're talking about a keratin treatment, there's literally nothing I can do. Even when I have it at the lowest temperature, it's still releasing formaldehyde, and even the thing that they replaced it with, it still lets off trace amounts of formaldehyde. And the thing is, the thing that they replaced it with, it causes damage long term to the hair shaft, especially if you have low porosity hair. Again, none of these things were tested. These were all forms, self-reports that women made when they were sitting on the toilet. So everything was lumped together, right? Relaxers, doing a keratin treatment wrong, because if you see how a keratin treatment is done and how a relaxer is done, they are two completely different things, and it's crazy to lump these two things together. But in this study, both keratin treatments and relaxers were both linked together as chemical straighteners. Black women demonize relaxers but are running towards Brazilian blowouts and keratin treatments when this study is talking about both. So they don't have any direct scalp or burning data, right? So everything again is coming from self-reporting, but nobody is taking into account, first of all, how it was done. So if you're not trained on how to properly coat the scalp, then yes, absolutely, the chemical may get into your pores and cause negative responses, negative reactions if you don't know what you're doing. Absolutely. But I don't have not one burn or one lesion in my head, and none of my clients did, because I based the crap out of my clients' scalps. But if you are just randomly doing your relaxers, getting relaxers online like most people online are doing, then that's what's gonna happen. Or if you see a woman get a relaxer in a regular professional salon versus a salon that's a little dustier, you can clearly see the difference. Or just simply the difference between relaxing your hair the right way, about 80%, and then relaxing it until it's bone straight. Those are two completely different things. And again, through self-reporting, they did not have these two distinguishing factors or all of these different factors. They just took what they said when they was writing on the paper while they was sitting on the toilet. There was no data whatsoever on the scalp lesions, how they came in, how often they came in, how their scalp was based, if whether or not they were scratching like crazy before they put the relaxer on, if whether or not they had just took braids out of their hair and then put a relaxer in. Nobody talks about any of these things. Just, yep, I had scalp burn. So mind you, everything was put on relaxers, because most of the time the same women who are making these reports while they sitting there on the toilet also have the same set of perfumes and lotions and deodorants and all of the things. They're using all of the same things. So it's not weird for all of these women to have some of the same effects if they're all using the same lotions on their skin, if they're all having the same diet, because Essence magazine is full of different fattening recipes that black women follow. Like, let's not. We don't talk about the environmental toxins, hormones, different medications that these women were on, their diets, all of the things, how active they were. None of these things were factors. Just those couple of questions while they were sitting on the toilet. So this study, again, out of all of these women that they follow, right, over 33,000, it was about 44,000 altogether. When you sit down and do the numbers, it was about 44,000 women, right? So 44,000 women over 22 years. You want to know how many people had uterine cancer? 347 women. So out of 44,000 women being followed over a 22 to 25 year period, less than one woman a year got cancer. There are 365 days in a year. Only 347 women over a 22 to 25 year period got cancer. And now as black women, we're constantly arguing with each other about this, knowing that there were no tests ran, knowing that there were never any ingredients or any brands left listed, knowing that there were no tests, no blood samples, no urine, no physical conversations with any of the people who made these reports. These were all women writing down stuff on the magazine while they were sitting on the toilet for free coupons. And only 347 women, after 22 years of following them around, not following them around, sending them magazines while they were sitting on the toilet. So now black women get to shame each other and say, oh, relaxer causes cancer every time the conversation pops up, even though there were no tests ran. There were no studies actually done. This is all a hypothesis. Yet and still, there are black women who actually put their hands on, talk to, touch their clients as they're giving them their relaxers. They keep up with their patterns and their routines. And and again, in my blog post below, I have an extremely low, it's like all of my notes are right there. I just tried to give them to you just right now in the shortest way period, even though I know this video is already long. But as a scientist, I get so annoyed and so irritated when we have conversations and when women make certain comments like this without reading things for yourself, because she was reacting to or making a comment in a video that I did with another cosmetologist who said the same exact thing that I said word for word. And I want you to notice her face whenever she asked her this question, because she's annoyed. It's annoying that black women, our people, are repeating something that was a hypothesis. You're saying, oh, relaxers cause cancer. It's a hypothesis. But you know something that is tested and they have factual information that it leads to a type of, not necessarily cancer, but certain different lung disorders, like a bunch of women were suffering from it and won lawsuits from it. Your keratin treatments that you love, your Brazilian blowouts that you love, the fumes that they release, even the fumes that they still release today. So to me, keratin treatments are just as guilty as relaxers are, because your powder relaxers, oh well, they don't have on the bottle that this happens and this happened. They don't have it on the bottle because it was a hypothesis. It's never been tested. So if they put, oh, no lie and lie relaxers cause cancer, they're going to be lying. They're going to be lying because nobody's ever tested it for real. These were all just a hypothesis. And then the women who actually use the relaxers, who actually test them, which are black women, other black scientists. A cosmetologist is a scientist, regardless of the way that you want to look at it or not. And I have a video all about that, link in the description box below. Cosmetologists have been saying, oh yeah, like if you ask most cosmetologists, oh, do you like this brand of relaxers? They're like, no. Oh, I don't ever use that one. And then they have their scientific reasons on why. They may put it in layman's terms and say, oh, it's because it makes the hair feel mushy or blah 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 blah. But that is a cosmetologist's way of saying it breaks the bonds down too fast. I don't like it. I don't have control over the structure inside of the cortex as much with this relaxer. We're not saying all of that. We just say, oh no, I don't like that relaxer, the formula, I don't like it. Because it's a hair appointment. It's not a scientific study session. So we'll just say it in short, right? But everybody who's getting on that bandwagon, nobody's actually read the studies. And again, I'm gonna leave all of them in the description box below. You can read all of them for yourself, and then you let me know how many times you see them list one ingredient. You tell me how many times you see certain tests that they've ran on blood or urine. You let me know. It never happened. And within the study itself, they say, we're not saying that relaxers cause cancer. They literally say it in the study, but y'all won't let it go. So yes, some scientists found a link between urine uterine cancer and relaxers, but a link does not mean the cause. It's saying that, hey, this group of women that use this product also have this. Maybe there's some correlation to that. That's all they said. That's it. Nobody said for sure, definitely this is the cause. No, the entire thing was a hypothesis that was never tested, ever. So if it seems like whenever people bring it up I'm dismissive, it's because I am. So if it seems like whenever somebody brings it up and I'm being dismissive, it's because I am. It makes no sense for us to argue and go back and forth over a hypothesis that a bunch of scientists never even cared enough to test. And that's something that I want you to think about. Black women, you guys are shaming each other for having relaxers, and the people who you're reading and quoting didn't care enough about. The people that you're quoting and arguing and shaming other black women for ignoring the test, they didn't even care enough about the things that you barely read to run any test. They didn't run one test. They didn't call one woman. They just sent in the papers while they were sitting on the toilet. They didn't test the products. They don't know what ingredients were in the products. They don't know which products the women were using. They just looked at surveys and had a conversation, made a hypothesis, made an article, and now y'all all read it and I can't believe you didn't address her. She was wrong. No, she was not. She knows exactly what she's talking about, and black women are the easiest women to deceive because they're the easiest group of people to turn against each other without anybody asking any questions. So if you are a person who still believes that relaxers cause cancer, then I challenge you to actually read every single study that I'm going to list within the description box below within my blog post. Read every last one. And if you don't come back with the exact names of the products that all of these 44,000 women were using, their urine samples, their blood tests, where they went to eat at Pookie House, what they was using in their hair, and all of the things, I really don't want to hear it. I just don't. It really doesn't make sense. And lastly, I get this comment all the time, and I don't really know how else to talk other than the way that I'm talking. It is what it is. Like, I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful, and like, but I get this comment like, oh, you're being rude and condescending, and or whatever your delivery. Listen, I don't know how else to say what I just said. I literally don't know how else to say it. So whoever takes it away, I don't want to say I apologize, because I'm about to say I'm sorry for doing something that I didn't even do, because I didn't even do nothing. I'm just talking like I normally talk. I was giving you the facts. You can read through them if you want to, or you don't have to. I don't know. We just chilling, trying to kick it, and I'm just being real and authentic. And if you don't like my real and authentic self, then go to back to your relaxer haters club. But I just need all of y'all. Relaxers are bad people. Read my full set of notes, right? Go read all of the articles. It's a lot. I know y'all haven't read it. I know you haven't. I know for a fact ain't none of y'all read all these. I know you haven't. But go read them and go see that you won't ever, none of y'all will even be able to come back and tell me one brand of relaxer that they focusing on. None of you will. So, yeah. And that's what I wanted to say. When we're talking about the lawsuits that are taking place, a lawyer's job is to find a loophole. So the loophole that they've been able to find is that on the relaxer bottles, they didn't put, hey, they have a hypothesis that this may cause cancer, which I think is insane. Because why would I put on my bottle that this person guessed that this may be the thing that is causing all of this in black women? Because they tested 45,000 women over 22 years, and only 347 of them had cancer. But yeah, it's relaxers. Please let me know in the comments if whether or not that makes sense to you.